Let's now get you a CNN News 18 exclusive. Now, top diplomatic sources have provided a breakdown of assessment of the Indian side. What this particular meeting means for India. We're talking about not just the Trump-Zelensky meet along with the other EU leaders. We're also talking about the earlier Trump and Putin meet. Now, Trump, we are told, has offered Zelensky a security inspired by that of Article 5 of the NATO, but without a formal accession. This was conveyed by President Trump to the French President Emmanuel Macron. Europeans and the leaders, the EU leaders, are more in favor of a collective security clause that would give Ukraine the guarantee of combined European support in case Russia attacks again. Now, one variant would be the American and the European engineers and technicians who are non-combatants, all of them working on the Ukrainian soil, and that Russia will not be inclined to attack Ukraine then, in that case. However, this is too loosely defined and very vague an argument at the moment. But here's what we are looking at. This is looking at a collective security clause, which is what EU is in favor of. And Trump has offered that Article 5 of NATO. He cited Article 5 of NATO. Let's further break down what this means. My colleague Akanksha Swaroop is with us, joining us with more details on this. Akanksha, the things that were put on table to keep Ukraine secure, considering he came with a volley of European leaders along with him, and by him I mean the Ukrainian president, what all was discussed?
Most importantly, Griha, they were NATO members, and so far till the Alaska summit happened and there was much criticism directed towards the US president, what was indicated was there's been no clarity on the security guarantees that Ukraine is looking for. In fact, when the Ukrainian president at the press conference was asked, Zelensky was asked what is he looking for in terms of expectations. Is it intel assistance by the United States, or is it military equipment? He said, I want everything, clearly indicating that he wants more clarity on security guarantees. And in inputs that have been shared by our securities editor, Mr. Manoj Gupta, as you highlighted, there are various permutation combinations. Europeans are more in favor of a collective security clause that would, of course, give Ukraine the guarantee of combined European support in case Russia attacks. This would be signed by US, EU and the UK without invoking any NATO clause. Now, one variant would be that the American and European engineers and even technicians who are non-combatants, since Donald Trump is very clear that he doesn't want any American forces or boots on ground would work on Ukrainian soil, that Russia will not be inclined to then attack Ukraine. And important to also highlight that for any such changes, as you also mentioned, they will have to, go back to Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization or NATO treaty, and that would require formal accession, and that also means more time. But most importantly, where India needs to be concerned is that Donald Trump has already informed EU leaders in DC that the list of sanctions against Russia are ready. If no agreements are possible within the next few weeks, that would largely target Russian oil companies Lukoil and Rosneft and prevent Russian financial operations with regards to the sale of their oil. And that would inevitably rope in all buyers of Russian oil, and that, as we all know, includes not just India but also China. So that's going to be a key sticking point for the world over. France and Germany have openly proposed sending EU peacekeeping force of up to 5,000 soldiers. Trump has advised them to wait as of now till Zelensky and Putin come face to face. Important to highlight that it was on the insistence of UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer, who requested that that all EU and UK leaders join Zelensky in White House. And the idea was to pose a collective show of strength, a larger message of togetherness as far as the EU is concerned, and it would also send a message of deterrence to Putin. And most importantly, the Five Eyes alliance would continue to provide A-grade intelligence to Ukraine. Trump has assured Zelensky, and remember, before this meet was set to happen, Griha, Donald Trump had taken to Truth Social where he had warned Zelensky to keep NATO and Crimea out of the talks. So that has certainly been contradicted, because you had these NATO allies who stood steadfast by the Ukrainian president, pledging their support to Zelensky.
Right. Akanksha, since we are talking about what this exactly means for India, we will speak more about what happens to the sanctions that have been assured to the EU leaders, particularly by Washington. But for now, let's also take a look at this special conversation that you have had with the former US National Security Advisor who decoded the Trump-Zelensky meet for us. That comes days after, remember, that Alaska summit where Donald Trump and Putin were in attendance. Take a look at this conversation.
Ambassador Bolton, thank you so much for joining us here at CNN News 18. Now, Donald Trump has some very clear instructions for the Ukrainian president, whether it's staying away from NATO or Crimea. What's your understanding of Trump's terms and conditions for a prospective peace deal in Ukraine? Has he already given Putin the upper hand in these negotiations?
Well, there's much we don't know about what was discussed at the Alaska summit, but we do know from press reporting that the critical point seems to be that Putin indicated that if Russia could acquire the rest of Donetsk province in eastern Ukraine beyond what they already control militarily, which would be a substantial concession of territory by Ukraine, then Russia would agree not to seek further territory in Ukraine and, although this is much vaguer, not to attack countries in Europe generally. That is, I think, a huge mistake for Ukraine to accept or for the United States and Europe to accept. There's a lot else in here that is unclear, but if what Trump has been talking about for several weeks after his first conversation with Putin on this subject, if giving up a major piece of Ukrainian territory is the prerequisite for Russia to accept a deal, then I don't think we're going to go very far today. So it's always subject to change once they get in the meeting. But it sounds to me like Putin's plan is designed to put Zelensky in the position of being the one who refuses the deal and therefore is the obstructor of negotiation.
Ambassador, let me quickly come to the India aspect of this, since you also mentioned India. US trade officials who were scheduled to arrive on 25th this month have halted their trip. How much rests on this peace deal for India's own trade negotiations, or is Donald Trump deliberately using this as an alibi to justify his growing interest in Pakistan?
Well, I hope that's not the case. I'm very worried. I think India was singled out among purchasers of Russian oil and gas for the 25% tariff that Trump announced some weeks ago. China, obviously, a much larger purchaser, no tariffs on that score at all yet. Turkey, another major purchaser, no tariffs there. And I think, obviously, given the Alaska summit, no direct sanctions on Russia itself. No additional sanctions. So India is the only country caught in the crossfire here, not only on the oil and gas issue, but as you say, on the general tariff discussion as well. It's my impression that India negotiators felt that they were very close to a tariff deal before Trump unilaterally announced the 25% figure, to which he then added the 25% for Russia oil and gas purchases. So I'm very worried that these decisions, which don't seem to fit into any strategic pattern, will have a negative impact, maybe a severely negative impact, on U.S.-India relations.
Since you said that, I'd like to take it up further. The US-India relationship has been a result of 25 years of painstaking bipartisan effort, one that includes Trump's own previous administration that you were part of as well. But he's dismantling it now ruthlessly. Can this bilateral relationship be salvaged, and how?
Well, I think it can be, but Trump is certainly not making it easy. And in international affairs, you have many strategic objectives. Sometimes they come into conflict. You have to try and reconcile them. And I don't think Trump paid attention to the impact that the 25% tariffs that he imposed because of the Russian oil purchases would be perceived in India, or the tariff decision, which resulted in India having higher tariffs than either Pakistan or Bangladesh. So really, I think all I can say at the moment, since he has 3.5 years left in office, is to try and persuade Indian decision makers that this does not, what Trump has done here does not reflect a broadly held view within the United States. This is another aspect of Trump's aberrational performance. And fully understand India will act in its own interest, but I would just say bear in mind history extends beyond the next 3.5 years. There will be a new administration at that point, and hopefully further damage can be limited, and we can start working more productively again.
By challenging the existing global trade order, has Donald Trump created a wider divide between developing economies, namely those of global south, the ones who are also part of the BRICS, versus the West at large, including the United States and EU?
Well, unfortunately, I think Trump's declared a trade war on the entire world. I mean, it is it makes no sense from a number of perspectives. Economically, it's going to harm the United States, harm American consumers, result in them paying hidden higher taxes because of the tariffs. It will harm international trade and finance to the detriment of everybody. Trade wars never end up with anybody better off. And I think, unfortunately, it may push India in particular closer back to Russia and to China. I don't think the BRICS countries themselves have any inherent organizing structure. Their interests are widely different, and it's a kind of unnatural arrangement as it is. But Trump's actions give it more of a reason to exist, at least in the minds of some people. And I just think that's dangerous long term. In our cases, both for India and the United States.
All right, Ambassador, we leave it at that. Many thanks to you for joining in on CNN News 18. Pleasure speaking to you as always.
Thanks for having me.